Welcome to the Beyond the Bucket Show, a podcast centered around optimizing all life's buckets. We all have buckets we are balancing: coaching, entrepreneurial ventures, family, passion projects, and health. Let's all take this journey together and become bucket fillers. And here's your host, Chris McSwain.
Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. Another great guest today, a first-time head coach, but a long-time basketball coach, and somebody that I've always respected by getting to know him from afar as well as getting to know him directly. So, Coach Chris Jackson, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to sit here and talk to you.
So I didn't mention in the little intro, but Chris Jackson is the newly appointed head coach at Pinewood High School. So before we get into all that, why don't you just give me a fun fact about yourself that most people wouldn't even know, even if they knew you?
Randomly, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I got that when I was 12 years old. That's usually my fun fact for people. I started when I was 8 years old with Ernie Reyes and did the whole karate scene, and that was cool, I guess. But yeah.
There you go. Okay, that's the first. You're the first black belt on the program.
Right.
I remember back when I did martial arts, when I didn't quite make it to black belt status, but I just thought it was the coolest thing when they give those like plywood boards and you have to break them with your hands or with your feet. And I didn't know that they just were not very sturdy boards and everybody could break them. I just thought, wow, this is really cool. I'm really strong at 8 years old, being able to break these little boards that anybody can break. What type of wood was it? Like, I think it was maybe like cedar.
Who knows? It was probably a piece of paper for all I know. But it made me feel like a superhero at the time when I was a kid. And I remember when I think I was like I said, 11 or 12, and when I did the whole black belt test, my like gift when I got home was a PlayStation 1. So that was like one of my core memories.
There you go. And I had to do the forms, like all of that.
The whole deal. Yeah. It was good stuff. It taught, coordination and some discipline and those things. But if I tell anybody I'm a black belt now their first question is, do you still practice or remember anything? My answer is no. So
right. Then you get
some of the basics.
Then you get those jujitsu guys that, flip you around and put you in all these different holds.
I'm not in there. Yeah.
That's one thing that I kind of want to do is like some jujitsu, like hand-to-hand sort of combat stuff, but I don't have enough time.
Those are good skills to have, man. But I just don't know if I can invest my time to get good at that kind of thing.
For sure. Well, why don't you give like a 3-minute origin story about you, just a little bit of background for some context before we jump into the conversation, because I know you, but not everybody that is going to be listening knows you just yet.
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in Campbell, California. Went to Campbell Middle School, played basketball, little league, and soccer growing up. Did some karate as well. Ended up going to Archbishop Mitty High School. Had a good squad and good run there, playing basketball and going to school. Really enjoyed my experience there, playing for Coach Eagleson. Got to move on and play at Foothill College for Coach Rosenberg. There in Los Altos. That was a fun junior college experience, and then got a scholarship and played at Westmont College in Santa Barbara, which was an NAI at the time. It's now D2. So that was my playing background. That was a long time ago. Almost 20 years out of high school now, which time has flown. But and then my coaching journey started actually when I was a senior in high school. I coached a Bay Area Tar Heels 5th grade team. And that was my first kind of introduction into coaching. Really enjoyed it. Got to continue that in Santa Barbara for a small travel team called the Santa Barbara Islanders. There were 6th and 7th graders at the time. While I was at Westmont in the summers, I coached that team. And then as soon as my playing career ended at Westmont, I hopped right into high school coaching at San Marcos. I coached there for 4 years. I was the freshman and JV coach. And then I moved up my final year to help out on varsity. Did JV and helped out on varsity. And then decided to move back to the Bay Area just to kind of switch things up. And got back into my old high school at Archbishop Mitty, and I was there for 7 years helping out TK and the program there. Had a good run and had a great experience there, and wanted to become a head coach. About halfway through my Mitty experience, I started to narrow down. I really wanted to be a head coach, so I
Yep.
started pursuing that whole thing. Got a lot of no's, but finally got a yes at Pinewood, and it's been an awesome fit. Super happy to be there. It's like a dream job. I'm a PE teacher and a basketball coach building the program, so
Yeah.
super excited to be there and just get started with kind of trying to build there. And so that's a little bit about my playing and coaching journey. I'm married with 2 kids, retired after 2 kids, no more kids for me. But I
Same
met my
here.
I met my wife, kind of full circle thing. I met my wife because my mom was coaching middle school basketball at Campbell Middle School, and that's how we originally met. Kind of went our separate ways and then reconvened, kind of a full circle thing. But basketball and coaching, all that stuff, even helped me find my wife, helped me find my purpose, all these things. So now I'm
Right.
at Pinewood, super excited to start our season. November 4th is our first practice, and so just excited to get going and build the whole thing over there.
Right. And fun fact, I think, well, I know that our wives went to high school together,
Delmar
and
Gons.
also I think you went to middle school with my wife.
Yeah, Campbell. That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a small world.
Definitely super small world. And one of the things that you mentioned, like you got a lot of no's for your first coaching job opportunity, head coaching job opportunity anyway, because those jobs are few and far between, and especially the jobs that you really are attracted to and you really want, where you think you can actually make an impact and also kind of move the needle and have some success too. I know that for me, it took like I believe 12 seasons like you to get my first opportunity, and I interviewed for other places but did not get that job opportunity. And you're just kind of waiting, when is it going to be? You're thinking, oh, because for those that don't know, when you interview, you are literally putting yourself in that position already, because you have to, in order for you to kind of get your mind around what's going to happen and how you're going to either elevate things or change things if there wasn't a lot of success in the program. And so you've got a bunch of different things that you've mapped out, and you're trying to sell yourself on how you're going to move this program in the direction that the administration wants. And then you literally, I'm the head coach, and then you don't get the job for whatever reason, whether that be somebody else had more experience, whether that be somebody else had better relationships, or just they didn't think it was a good fit. And I know that firsthand. So tell me, like, what was it like for you when you were going through these processes? Because for me, it was like sometimes, like, darn, how did I not get that? Like, I did everything I possibly could to get that job. But I will say this, and maybe you have the same experience. The jobs that I did not get were, like, it was great that I didn't get them, because I'd probably still be trying to be there. Like, this is my
Yeah.
12th year at Valley Christian. I don't plan on going anywhere for a while, but like, I would have probably done that same thing at some of those other places that I didn't get the job at, and I
Right.
probably wouldn't be as happy uh, as I am right now.
Yeah. No, to your point, it's funny how things work out, right? To your point, all the no's that I got, I was obviously super disappointed at the time. But I also had the perspective that I was steadily getting better at this interview process, more comfortable in my skin and more comfortable in communicating my philosophy and what I could do to kind of help benefit the schools and the program. So I would use each opportunity as, I'd go into it, even if I get a no here, I'm going to grow and I'm going to get better. And I felt myself doing that throughout each process, but each no is still, a little disappointing and all those things. So something you got to deal with internally. But to your point, I couldn't be happier that I landed at Pinewood, and I think it's a perfect fit for me. And so, all the no's were a blessing in disguise, I guess. So now that I ended up here, and I'm, excited to kind of have a long-term run here and just see how things work out.
Yep.
But But yeah, each time was a learning experience. And each no, I took, with a grain of salt, with a little disappointment, but then I get another surge of confidence to kind of stick with it. And so it's just kind of part of the game. It's a big political position, and it's the school has a lot to juggle in making that decision. So I respect all that. And it's hard, to explain and communicate your value in a 2-hour interview if they don't really know you beforehand. So sometimes those pre-existing relationships help, but I'm happy to be at Pinewood. I'm happy to have gone on the journey I've gone on. And if I interview in the future, I'll approach the same way.
Right. And I think it makes you stronger, similar to how if you lose a tough game, and a game that you felt that, look, we had this game, and you just kind of fall short a little bit. And that's similar to how I felt if I didn't get one of those job opportunities. But yeah, I think, you just approach it like a game, and you scout the team, and you scout the people that are making the decisions in those places, and try to really get to know them in a short amount of time, and really give a genuine, thoughtful response to whatever it is that they're asking you. So any of those young coaches out there, or coaches in general, that are looking to interview for potential job openings, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and I'm sure that you can reach out to me, or you, or anybody else in those situations that can help you out. But what is one of and so when I first got the job at Valley, there was like some things that I identified. There was like 3 major things that I identified that I wanted to make sure that I brought to the table. And what were those things for you? What were those non-negotiables? What was the first thing that you decided that you were going to do? And for me, I'll just tell you, the first one is I needed to gain the trust of the young athletes, because I was their third coach in the 3 seasons, or 3 or 4 seasons, right? So I needed them to trust me. And so I pulled the 2 captains aside. I said, hey, look, and Jessica and Jordan, and we're still very close to this day. And I coached Jordan's sister, and she came through the program, and her younger brother is on the football team now at Valley. So they're more like family. But during that first meeting, I said, you guys don't know me from a can of paint, but I'm just going to ask you guys to trust me. And I understand that I'm a new coach coming in, but we're going to have to do this thing together. And those 2 instantly bought in, and they made my experience so much easier, because they were returning all league type of players that opened their mind and trusted me from the very beginning. And so it made the transition a lot easier, because once I got them on my side, it was like, okay, this guy's okay. And he's not going to leave, after a few years. So what was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, my whole approach to this whole thing was to change the culture of Pinewood basketball. It's never been known. The girls' side of the program is awesome. They're ranked in the state, and Doc has got the whole thing going. He's been there 30 plus years. But the boys program's kind of been a revolving door in terms of coaching, and that's due to a lot of factors based on the schools, not necessarily the past coaches. So that's just been what it is. So my whole thing was to bring some consistency and a culture of effort and caring about the school, caring about each other, caring about the basketball program. But similar to you, I met with the upperclassmen. I didn't have the benefit of having returning all league players, but we have some upperclassmen that I met with. And similar to you, I talked to them about, I'm gonna earn your trust. We're gonna start working together. We're gonna do this whole thing together, and I'm gonna earn your trust over time. Based on my actions and my consistency and my communication. And once they get comfortable and all that stuff, then we can get on the same page and kind of move forward. And the Pinewood kids have done an awesome job, because I've come in and put on demands that they haven't really had in the off season, and trying to build a year-round program, and just kind of a consistency of improvement and working on skills, working on playing, building camaraderie, even in the off season. So they've done an awesome job of adapting to what I'm asking them to do. So I'm really proud of all the young guys and their families of jumping into what we're trying to change in Pinewood and helping that whole thing. So I have confidence that we can with the young and the young group that we have, super inexperienced, but we have a good group of freshmen, some upperclassmen that really care about Pinewood, really care about wanting to change things. So we're doing it all together. And to your point, the step one is to earn the players' trust. So once they're bought in and they can kind of start leading themselves and building that culture within themselves, then we can kind of just go from there. So that's my main focus to start Pinewood.
For sure. And talk about your relationship, getting to know Doc on the other side. I've, coached against him for the last 11 seasons, and we play each other every single year, or we scrimmage every year, because some of the times we end up playing in the playoffs.
Right.
So we just kind of scrimmage, and he does such a really good job of coaching and teaching the game. We did a coaching clinic together. He spoke right before me, and so like I was more entrenched on learning from some of the stuff that he was teaching instead of like the presentation that I had right after. But I've learned so much from him, from a distance as well as as a mentor. There's times where he'll send me certain plays, or there's a couple plays that they ran. I said, "What was that?" And he sends me the clip from the Memphis Grizzlies game that they ran for John Morant, which he used to run for L a few years back. And then at the coaching clinic, I took it and ran it in a 5-out situation. And he was like, "Wow, I really like that. We're going to add that to our thing." And so that was like a real cool moment for me, for one of my peers to text me after the clinic and said, "Hey, really liked your zone stuff. Also, that Memphis action that we run, we're gonna add into a 5-out situation." And so I've learned a lot from him, and I really respect him. He's been on the podcast as well, and he's very generous with his time. Been in the game for a really long time. But talk about that relationship that you guys have.
Oh, Doc's a legend. He's a character, and I love every second of it. But he's a legend in terms of just how much he loves the game of basketball, how much he loves improving players, helping players kind of realize their abilities and kind of improve their skill work. But something I strive to be similar to Doc is he's a lifelong learner. He's been doing this 30 some odd years, had a ton of success, and he's still in there every day when we talk learning. And I'm a first time coach coming in, and we talk, and there's things where he's saying he's picking at my brain and talking to me. And so that's something that I really admire about him, and vow to be as a coach, as a lifelong learner. I'll never be set in my ways. I think the game is constantly evolving. I think there's a ton of really bright minds out there, so you can constantly learn and get something from every individual you meet that's coached. And so that's something I really admire about Doc. But I've also learned a ton from him about skill development, the way he views the game, the way he views just everything. And so I constantly am talking to him as much as I can to learn as much as I can about him, because I respect the way his team plays, the way they act, the way he coaches, what he values. I think all those things are in line with what I'm trying to build, and I think that's part of why Pinewood worked out for me. But in the same breath, I'm super, super lucky to have someone like Doc in my corner to kind of help me get rolling and bounce ideas off of. And so, yeah, I really take advantage of him being in the office with me and being in the same program. And I'm striving to build something similar to what he's built on the girls' side, on the
Right.
boys' side at Pinewood.
Yeah, you're coming from a place where both programs were really strong. At Mitty, the girls program, obviously I know very well, and the boys program, has had equal amount of success as far as just the program and the culture. And so, what did you learn from working across from Sue and then working directly with Tim, as far as how they approached the game? What were some of the similarities and differences that they brought to the table? And we all are very different in our approach. Even though it's the same game that we're all coaching, there's not going to be one size that fits everybody. And you're not going to be able to do everything that this coach does, because that's what their personality is. And that's kind of what I've learned over the years, is like, you just really have to be you. It doesn't matter if this coach is running this, or you have to find out what you believe in. You have to stick to what those things are, and most of all, just like keep it simple and get out of the way. But what did you learn from both Sue as well as TK?
Yeah, I mean, those are two amazing high school coaches. I mean, Sue's a Team USA coach, state champion, amazing coach. TK, same thing. Something they're very similar at is how intense they are in terms of competitiveness, but also just their preparation. They watch a lot of film, well aware of who they're playing, what their team's going to do, how we're going to match up, kind of where our advantages lie. They also do a good job of communicating that to their teams. So I think their teams come in very prepared for games, and that's something I learned from both of them. They do it. They do it in kind of different ways, but I think they share that same quality.
What's
But
the biggest what's the biggest difference in
I
as
mean,
far
I,
as far
I
as
mean, I
that
didn't.
goes?
I saw Sue from afar. I would watch as much as I could, with her practices. I wasn't, involved in the inside talks of their conversations and things. But just the way she communicated, I would watch some of the film breakdown she did with her teams and just listen to her talk. And it was really clear of what, here's what the other team's going to try to do in this situation. Here's how we're going to guard it. Talk to individuals if they needed to, and just kind of break, 3, 4 clear, strategy things for the game that, it's not breaking off of what they normally do, but here's what we're looking to attack. Here's where we're looking to attack. Here's where we want to stop them. Basic things, but just elite communication, elite, film breakdown, really efficient. The players are locked in while they're talking. Sue's demand of respect is admirable. Sue's overall organization of what she's doing is amazing. Same with TK. They're locked in from they're juggling the freshman, the JV, the varsity progression levels within their program while juggling, who we're playing and all these other things. So I learned a ton from both of them. And I'm just super grateful to have had those experiences.
Yeah, it's good to be around so many great people that have kind of taught you, and you're kind of accumulation of all the people that you have experienced. And so, if you've directly experienced these people, they're obviously going to have an influence in your life and on the program that you actually run. And Pat Judge, whereas I was a lot more serious. Like I was at Lee for 3 years before I went over to Valley on the boys side. And the one thing that I loved about Pat was he let his players be players. Like, because when I was being coached and then when I first started, like I was very, very rigid in the fact that it was like, no, this has to be done. This is more of like a job. And Pat made it really, really fun for all of his groups. And that was one of the things that I tried to take from him was like, this is a game. This is fun. Let's have some joy. Let's smile. Let's, high five each other. Let's play really hard, but let's not take it too serious to the point where it's just we don't really like it. And that was one thing that I always took from him because I'm more serious when it comes to this. And so that's the one thing that I always try to remind myself about that because my high school coaches were Raymond Townsend and Brad Quinnett, and those guys were both very, very intense and both very, very serious and very, very detailed. But Pat was like more of a just kind of I would say like a Pete Carroll type of coach where it was more like, hey, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna have a bunch of fun playing this game that we love. And I really enjoyed that. And so that's something that I've always tried to do a better job at because my personality is more serious most of the time. What is something that you've taken from them that may not be your personality and you're like, this is what I want to do a little bit more of?
Yeah. Well, to your point, what you said earlier, I'm huge on just being genuine. I'm going to be who I am and I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to just make things based on my personality. I like to mix in some humor and things there. But to your point, when I played basketball and all those things, I took it, almost too seriously. So there's a little bit of anxiety in there. And so I think as a coach, I think being able to provide an environment where there's an intensity and competition and a seriousness to it, but you're not playing with a level of anxiety to where you can't function and read what's happening. I think is the whole point of coaching. And so, trying to provide that environment, trying to provide that feedback, and how I talk to each individual, that's different. How I talk to the team, it depends on the group. And so it's hard for coaches to juggle and kind of figure out, but that's the whole point of this thing. And to your point, the only way you can do that or have a chance to is to be genuine, to be who you are. So as much as I've learned from Sue, as much as I've learned from TK and other people, I'm still going to be who I am. As much as I've learned from Doc, I want to emulate a lot of what Doc does at Pinewood. I still got to be who I am and kind of what works for me. And so I'm providing the best of me for my players. So nothing's fake and nothing's, we don't lose sight of kind of what we're doing. And to your point, we're playing a game, and I want to win. Everyone wants to win, and I'm going to throw everything I can to help win the games and the season. But there are bigger things, part of the deal that we need to address. These are young people that are learning how to kind of grow into young men. And so handling those things takes priority over winning basketball games. And so
100%.
that's something I've learned from those guys. And the way I'm going to go about it will be different because I'll be me, but I'll pick something from all these coaches that I've seen and kind of build my own presence as a coach.
Right. One of the things that I've really changed my mindset on is, early on it was probably just like win at all costs, no matter what. We have to, we're not going to skip a practice. We're going to do, we're going to go 2.5 hours. We're going to do all these things that it's like, is that the best return on what this is about? And the biggest thing is going to be about an experience. Think about what your kids enjoy when they have a good experience. And the two things that I think that all coaches should be graded on would be, number one, did my kid have an enjoyable time, or did the kids have an enjoyable experience while under our attention as the program heads, right? Whether it be hard or not. I didn't say that it's going to be hard, but did you have a good experience when you look back on this 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, and you're like, wow, that was actually a really good experience, because I wasn't always pleased with my mom, the way she disciplined me, but she turned me into the person that I was supposed to be based on the structure and the standards that she had in place. That's the same thing as our program. We need to make sure that our standards are very high, but at the same time, we need to be teaching them these life lessons that are going to translate off of the court when they do finish basketball. Most of them won't play college. Some of them will play college, but most of them won't play after that. And so what are these values and things that you've really put into their head? And so it's okay to miss a practice, because you guys are going to go over some of these things and sit down with the team and map out what a good leader is like, because so many coaches say, oh, we're soft, or we don't have good leadership and stuff like that. Well, that's on us. And Doc said this at the clinic too. He's like, if you got bad shooters, that's on you as a coach. And I was like, dang, he's right. He's right. Because and I'm like, can we change our shot in the middle of the season? It's like really, really difficult to do that, Doc. He's like, it's not, you don't have to do it, but you won't have good shooters. So and very, very, as a matter of fact, but he was right. And so I went back and told my staff, I said, it's on us. If they can't make shots, it's on us. And if we can't make small, minor adjustments to help them, that's on us. And if we don't get good leadership, you know what, that's on us. And if we don't have a tough team, that's on us. It's not on anybody else. It is on us. And that is one thing that I've been, priding myself on more recently. Like, all right, what does this really look like? What does our experience look like? What do I want them to have after freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, 4 years of this? So that's been my biggest shift, is like, we're going to try to win, of course, but at the same time, we are going to teach them what it means to be a great teammate, what it means to be selfless, what it means to be all these things. And it's not just something that we talk about, it's something that we live. It's different handouts that we give you guys, so you can hopefully embed that system. And you might be like, oh my gosh, we're doing this stuff again. But and that's how you learn stuff. So is there anything that you find yourself thinking about or wanting to do as you kind of get ready for this first rodeo as a head coach?
Well, just like, going off what you just said, I think the more accountability we can take on as coaches of, like you said, if they can't shoot, instead of saying you need to go do this or that, or, they acted a certain way, it's like you need to do this or that. We need to be the model of that. We need to be constantly providing the feedback and behaviors that they should be partaking in, rather than saying, here's the things you don't need to do. My wife's a behavior analyst. So one of the bigger things that I've learned from her that I take into my coaching, as a young coach, I would always say, after a mistake, it's like, don't do this or don't do that. You shouldn't have done that. I need to provide, here's what you should have done. It's like, here's what you did. Here's what you could have done. And I think it's a better, more holistic way of viewing the game and kind of feedback. And so, to your point, I think as coaches, if we take accountability, if our team's not great at shooting, let's find a way to get more shots up. Let's find a way to get better feedback for them to shoot. If our team's not treating each other great, let's sit down, have a hard conversation, and talk about why we're talking to each other this way. And to your point, that these are all fall on the coach's shoulders. And if there's a day or whatever where the coach, man, I don't really feel like addressing that, or that seems like that's going to be a hot topic, and let's avoid addressing that. You're just building this, you're just delaying the inevitable. And so I'm big on, as soon as something happens, let's address it now. Let's have the conversation. Let's just get used to that. Because the more I do that, the more consistent I stay with that, that becomes part of the team's culture, and things don't slide or get pushed under the rug. And I think that's a big part of kind of making progress in any kind of culture that you're trying to build.
For sure. What's going to be your approach with parents, and kind of the philosophy behind that? That's obviously a big hot button topic. Everybody seems, just in all areas of life, everybody seems that they have an opinion or a stance on certain things, which that's the great piece about social media. But also at the same time, a lot of these people don't put the same amount of time, energy, and effort that coaches put in to even have that sort of input. But I do think it is our duty to be open to hearing what parents have to say, as long as everybody keeps it respectful and that sort of thing, and understanding, like, the goal is, we both want the best for your child, but that doesn't
Right.
mean that your child is going to be the star of the team or get every shot or even play, for that matter.
Right.
But to what we've been chatting about, the experience that this provides is something that is going to be valuable for them in their life. But
Yeah.
what it was going to be your approach with parents?
I got a few things on that. Number one, we'll have a parents meeting each year to kind of lay out kind of what the standards are in terms of kind of the roles of parents play in this whole the program and the process, which is to be supporters, which is to help the kids, and not come and talk to me about playing time or those things, but have their kids advocate for themselves, encourage their kids to advocate for themselves. But a couple of big things I talk about is, look, your son's got, at some point in the season, your son is probably going to feel some frustration, some disappointment, some just like kind of negative feelings. And that's where I think your encouragement to kind of persevere through, to continue to work hard, to have conversations with your coaches is an extremely valuable stance to take as a parent. That being said, I'll never tell anybody how to parent their kids. I also can recognize that, the culture of today's basketball is to, buy a bunch of have a bunch of personal trainers as your coaches. The parents are also impacted by the social media influence they're seeing of other kids being ranked and all these other things. So they're doing as much as they can to help their kids, prepare for these teams. And if the results aren't what they're expecting, since they've spent so much money, sometimes they feel like they're owed this response. And like, so something I always talk about is sports doesn't care about any of that. You have to earn everything you hit and everything you get. And that's part of the beauty in sports. So you can spend as much money as you want, paying some guy to rebound for you and tell you great job while you shoot. But if you're not getting better at 5-on-5, that doesn't mean you can get out there and play 5-on-5.
Right.
So I think just communicating those things, but having a positive relationship with parents, setting a clear boundary of how the communication will work throughout the season, I think is really important beforehand. So like I said, we're not talking about playing time. We're not talking about strategy. You can have your kids come and talk to me. And if they come and talk to the coaches and they feel like nothing's, gotten accomplished, then we can take another step and include you in the conversation. But I think it's really important to, have kids learn to advocate for themselves, communicate for themselves, find some understanding as to why they're at where they're at, what they can do to improve and change their position. Carries a long way. And parents are used to, I'm a parent myself. I know there's like this uncontrollable bias you may have. So, after becoming a parent, I totally see that and respect and acknowledge that. So I think just dealing with that with as much grace and as I can, and just open communication as I can, has seemed to work. But I take each of those situations individually. I try to set the standard before the season to avoid any kind of gray areas. But that's just kind of how it is. That's just part of the job. That's part of the environment that we're in now. I know a lot of coaches complain about it and or whatever, but I try to build positive relationships with the parents, regardless of if they like how much their kid is playing or not. I try to bring it back to the overall growth of the program, the team, their kids. And so I think constant communication, being open and honest about it, is helpful. But the clear standards has to be set, or else you're gonna get a bunch of phone calls, a bunch of weird, and you're gonna be juggling a lot of different things. Then things become uneven. So I think just setting a standard of like, here's how it's going to happen. After the season, we can all meet and kind of go from there. But even in college, I couldn't imagine being a college coach nowadays. It's a 1-year deal. Even this guy doesn't like how much he played, he's probably gone. And so that's different than 5-10 years ago. And even at the high school level, kids transfer all over the place, all these things. So I'm just taking it year by year, trying to provide the experience you're talking about, to where even if they didn't necessarily enjoy the role they had on the team, they had clarity on why they were there, and overall they cared about the success of the group. And I think there's some success there. And if kids choose to leave and because they want to get more playing time elsewhere or whatever, then that's just kind of part of it. That's just how I view it.
Right. And for me, the biggest thing is like parents. And I was at you were at your kid's basketball game today, I'm sure, and I was at mine. But parents are just oblivious to. There's a visceral reaction when you see your kid, either do good or not do so well. Like there's a visceral reaction. You're like, oh, and you feel that. So I sit away from. I sit with the other team's parents. And I just sit there and I just kind of watch, because there was one time last year we were playing basketball and the game was getting, and I help out but then I let some of the coaches coach and take over. But there was one time where I was asked to coach and step in, so I did some defensive stuff, and they did it great. Like the first half, while I'm on that side, and then they switched directions in the second half, and all of a sudden, they weren't getting up, and the kids were starting to make the outside shots, and so I'm like yelling, I'm like, get up on D, and the coach is yelling, and my wife is yelling, and my son after the game, he was like, Dad, he's like, I was just confused about what was going on, because you were telling me something, mom was saying something, and then the coach was telling me something. And like, I just sit there and I listen now, because there's nothing that any of the parents are going to say that is actually going to help at that point in time. Right. Okay. It's like 5 different phrases: shoot, pass, rebound, box out. All those things are happening. Go, stop. Like, all those action words that are being profusely sprayed across the gym by these parents, it doesn't help. It does not help. So I figured out, I'm just going to sit over here with with the other families. If they want to talk to me, great. One of the dads today was like, how often do you guys practice? And I mean, these are, well, CJ plays up, but he's got he's playing with all the second graders from his school, and he's in first grade. And they're like, how often do you guys practice? Well, I'm like, just the hour before we get here. Right. But we did in the spring and the summer. I got them all out there at Campbell Middle School, CMS now, I think, or Campbell School of Innovation now.
CSI, yeah.
But we go out there and we just play. I let them play, and then I'll stop it and I'll say, freeze. Okay, get the ball back. Redo that situation, because they don't know how to play just yet. All right, freeze. Was that the right decision? Okay, no, bring it back. Put everybody get back in those same positions, and that's how they learn. That's how they learn how the game goes. And so, they are learning at a different rate, but it's because they are learning. It's not somebody telling them to do it, because you can't learn that way. You have
Right.
to, like, nobody's going to be able to tell you. Tim can't tell you what to do. Doc can't tell you what to do. Your wife, your friend, nobody can tell you what to do in the role that you're in right now. You're the one that's going to have to do it. And you're going to have success. Then you're going to mess up. Then you're going to have success, just like the players do. Some day their shot's going to be great. And then another day their shot's going to be off. And it's just what life is all about. And we have to really embrace those struggling moments, because that's where the growth comes. And that's what that's what I really like. I love the fact that you can, like you mentioned, just that growth mindset and just continuing to grow. But parents, there's nothing that you can say in those games that's going to help them.
Right. Now, you mentioned two great things right there. Number one, I talk to parents all the time. I coach a sixth grade team right now, the Fever, kind of through Pinewood and whatever. But I talk to the parents and I say, one of my first questions is like, okay, they ask, well, what can you do to get better? I say, okay, well, what is he doing on his free time to get better at basketball? Say, well, yeah, he has, a shooting coach and a trainer. Like, okay, that's two people. Okay, what is he on another basketball team? He's on one other team besides your team. It's a travel team. And then his dad, usually gives him some feedback. And I'm like, okay, so just off the top of our conversation, that's five voices they're hearing that are probably not in line. So they're getting, told five different things per game, per practice, and they're getting yanked in all these different ways. So my initial response always is try to narrow the amount of voices there. And if you feel like they're getting better with this trainer and your husband, then do that. Like, by no means do they have to stay with me, but I think having 6, 7 voices before you're 14 years old is confusing, and I know, and each person is really genuinely trying to help. Each person that probably has some good insight and good value to what they're telling your kid, but going from a training session to a practice to another practice to this and that, it's too confusing. And so I think that's a really tough thing parents are currently juggling. There's so many resources out there to try to get better. There's so many trainers and teams out there. Growing up playing travel ball, when I graduated high school 20 years ago, playing travel ball was not just something you can just find any team and go and do. That was something you genuinely had to try out for. And odds are, unless you were pretty good, you're going to get cut or not play travel basketball. Now
Right.
anybody can play travel basketball. Anybody can have a trainer. Anybody can have a shooting coach. And there's some positives and values to that, but I think overloading with a ton of voices that are not in unison is only confusing for young kids. So that's something I talk to parents all the time about. But I think it is what it is.
Yep. I mean, my son was like, "Yeah, Dad, I want to get a trainer." I'm like, "Who are you looking at right now? Like, what are
Yeah,
you doing? What are you even talking about?"
but
But
it's not you. Obviously, that he doesn't want you to work with you.
no,
You're
he
his
does.
dad.
The funny thing is, like, when we get around his friends, so I love having his friends come over and play, because then he'll be telling them what to do, and it's literally the same thing that I would tell him what to do. So
That's good then.
I think it's getting through to him, but yeah. So
He's
it's
coaching already.
interesting. I try to coach all the sports. So like right now I'm coaching baseball. We just had a baseball game, and they just started the kid pitch, so he's a pitcher, and
Okay.
then coach his flag football team, and then he plays soccer. I don't coach that one because I don't know too much about soccer, other than you just got to kick the ball into the net, and then
Right.
basketball. So I help coach, but then I'll fall back and just watch the game. Because yeah, it's just a lot. But I want to coach all those things. It's probably like the worst time to do it as we're getting ready for our seasons. But I want to be around my kids and spend time with them, and that sort of thing. And so you've invested 11, 12 years in a bunch of different lives, right? And that your time is going to be the most valuable thing. So what I've tried to shift and do is try to just involve my kids in every part that I'm in too. So like, when we go up to the Valley football games, that's them being around a part of my life, because that's the community that we're in. So that's the next question I got for you is like, how are you going to ingratiate your family with this basketball? Like when we go on a team retreat, my wife is going, my kids are going. I
Yeah.
want the players to know my family. I want the parents to know my kids. I want them, there's a couple of parents that will bring snacks to my kid. My kids go up to them every single time. That's what this is about. It's about the community that we serve, and the community that we have around us. That makes it so much better. Like we had one of my former players, she babysat our kids last night when we went to dinner. Like this is our life. This is a family. And I really, really appreciate that. But I knew if I was going to continue to coach, that's how it had to be, based on having a wife and 2 children.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. That was part of my whole interview process of what I was excited about. I wanted to bring my wife and 2 kids into the Pinewood community. We've already gone to a couple football games and different events on campus just to be around and to meet people. And the Pinewood community is amazing. I've only been there a few months, but just great people, really genuine, supportive, just caring people. So I'm just excited to bring my family around. They're excited to be around. To your point, that's a huge part of building the program and building the continuity with the school. Because as much as I want to build, those relationships with my players and their families, I think the teachers, the faculty, the staff, the other students, all those people, it's just as important to build those relationships and do all the networking and that to just kind of build excitement about the basketball program, build some trust about where Pinewood's headed in terms of the boys basketball. And so it's been awesome in terms of how Pinewood's embraced my family, and I'm choosing every opportunity I can to bring them around. So that's just, something that will continue to grow, and more relationships we build there, the better.
For sure. And just talk about like the coaching community. Your brother-in-law is a football coach up at CSM. He used to coach at Sac State too, and somebody that I know as well. And he'll be hopefully getting on the show too. But just talk about some of the coaches in the area, and just like the bond that all of us coaches have. I mean, we've sat in the backyard and talked hoops and different things like that. And I really value the time and that we get to spend together. And it's just a really cool thing having so many great coaches in the area that all seem to really get along. I mean, there's not one coach that I dislike, that I coach against, or that I know. People might not like me, I'm sure. I'm just kidding. But
Fair.
yeah, just talk about some of that community.
Yeah, no, I mean, the coaching community's been, I think the coaching community's completely changed in terms of what you're talking about. There used to be this, kind of a competitive, almost players like view to other coaches where it's like, I don't want to talk to you. And we're just going to keep this kind of animosity. But I think kind of how the game has changed and evolved, the world has evolved. I think coaches have more respect for each other in terms of the profession we choose to go into, trying to positively impact lives, and understanding we may go about it different, but what you're doing is honorable and admirable. So I love talking to coaches of any sport, any level, just to pick their brain on all these things, see if they have any good ideas in terms of how they talk to their team, what their strategies are, all those things. But um, you know, when I was a younger coach, I was more insecure and competitive with my view of other coaches, and I wouldn't kind of reach out that olive branch and establish relationships. But now that I've gotten a little older, have kids, kind of understand the bigger picture, I see the value in that, and I try to talk to as many coaches as I can, and just to kind of create a positive vibe, let them know I respect what they're doing, and kind of keep it going from there. But to your point, yeah, my brother-in-law Jason coaches football currently at College of San Mateo. He's at Sac State. He's kind of bounced around. Uh, my mom actually coached my wife in middle school basketball, so she was a basketball coach. My younger brother was a head coach in Montana at Power High School, so it runs in my family a little bit there. So yeah, but to your point, I respect coaches. I respect why they're doing it. I respect why they're investing their time. Because coaching, for the most part, is not this big money making sport. for the amount of hours we're spending, especially away from our families, it's a huge sacrifice.
It's a lot of
So
hours.
once I kind of, especially once I had kids and I realized that, and I kind of look back at coaches that have had kids, or a current coach that have kids, my level of respect went up. And I think that's just, as anyone gets older, I think, you start viewing people differently, but I have the
For sure.
ultimate respect for coaches, especially coaches that take it serious and really, you know, prioritize their responsibilities as coaches. That's something I'm striving to do and balance within my family. My family is obviously my main priority. My wife and 2 kids are what drives me and what are my priority. But beyond that, I feel like my purpose is to teach life in basketball, just through coaching. And
For
so,
sure.
finding that balance with my wife's support is great.
One of my biggest mentors is a non-basketball coach. You know him, Sam Ferraro, coached baseball for a long time. Actually, he's still at Mitty,
Yeah.
coaching baseball now under Yaki, which is kind of weird because he coached Yaki when
Yeah.
Yaki
Yeah.
was in college, which
Yeah.
is pretty crazy to think of. But ironically, the baseball coaches, in my opinion, have like helped me the most when it comes to just like the philosophies of coaching. Like Sam, he broke down one day. Anytime I go over there, I just learn something new. I just probably keep my notes in my phone. I just have like a note thing, and I jot down a bunch of stuff. But he was like, he quizzed me one day. He was like, Chris, he was like, McSwain, I need you to, in the simplest terms, tell me what coaching is. And I was like, oh, so I started to bullshit some random thing. This is early on in my coaching career. And he's like, if you can't say it in 2 words, it doesn't mean anything. He was like, change behavior. I was like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense to me, because as a coach, that's exactly what you're trying to do. Same thing that you're trying to do with your children is
Yeah.
change behavior to something that is the standard for you and the way you see it fit. Um, so that was like a profound thing. And then speaking with my brother-in-law, Nate Anderson, who's a longtime baseball coach, and just the baseball guys, for whatever reason, because they have a lot of time to think about interpersonal relationships, philosophies, and stuff like that. Basketball moves so fast. It's probably, I think it's outside of hockey. I think it's probably like the fastest paced game because it goes offense to defense. It's not like baseball. You're on offense,
Right.
then you go to defense. In basketball, you could be on offense for a second, and then you're on defense for 10 seconds, and then you're on offense for 5 more seconds, and then you're on defense for 30 seconds, and it just goes back and forth, back and forth. So when they come up with different philosophies, it's just like, oh wow, that's took some thought in that. And then baseball coaches, they can just talk because they have so much extra time. They are like the best conversationalists
Right.
out. You can sit and talk to a baseball coach about, dry erase boards for a long time because
Yeah.
they know how to just go in and out with the conversation. Is there anybody specifically that that we haven't spoke about that is like, wow, this person has given me so much knowledge, and I respect this person for all the stuff that they've given me?
Yeah. I mean, when you said describe coaching in 2 words, the first thing that popped up in my head was love players. Change behavior is probably very similar to that.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think to your point, baseball, as coaches, their whole thing is to establish a certain mentality and a certain outlook. It's a failure sport, right? You hit 2 or 3 out of 10 balls, you're like an all-star. So I think kind of just having this resilient team first mentality is a focus of baseball that really helps and translates to basketball, to your point. And I know a bunch of great baseball coaches that have taught me similar things. One of my This is super random. One of my bigger non-basketball, non-sports influences in coaching. I genuinely love Gordon Ramsay. I
Hmm.
love Chef Ramsay. I know he's super rowdy on people, but just the standard, the accountability, the no excuses. I verbalize things in a completely different way and go about it a different way. But I think just the ruthlessness of just like, we're gonna do it this way. It is what it is. It's not a conversation. I think is something I picked up off of a non-sports person off of TV. Not sure that was your question, but that was
No, well, I mean, we
yeah.
just talking, and the thing is, like, all that, like, if we wanted to be super entertaining on this podcast, we could, like, but we're really trying to engage and get something out of this conversation, because that's where real stuff, like, we're not just trying to get clicks. We could get crazy and say all these things about other coaches in the area and all that, but that's just not what we're about. Like, all that stuff, Gordon's like philosophy and base is very, very solid, and I think that, and I think the main people know that, but most of the people watch that for what he's going to say and how he says it, because most of the time that's just entertainment. Well, not most of the time, it is entertainment. Think about Skip Bayless. That was all entertainment. How can you literally say for 10 years straight, LeBrick James and this and that, like some of the most outrageous stuff that you could even say about a player, you can't say that about LeBron. Like, if he's not the best, then he's at least in the conversation. And why does it matter if he's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? It really does not matter. But people like the chaos. People like the things that you say bad about somebody just for, somebody said this about, what are you going to say about this? Like, it doesn't really matter. And just like, think of the discourse with our political figures now. 12 years ago, the two candidates, they went across and they shook each other's hand, and it was like respectful, and it was like, it's almost switched. Back in the day, coaches didn't like each other. Now coaches like each other. And back in the day, politicians genuinely respected the other person's views. Now they can't respect anything. They don't even answer a question that is delivered to them, right? So that's the biggest thing. And I think it probably like pertains to what we're saying, is because a lot of this stuff is just entertainment. All the social media stuff is just entertainment, and people want to be entertained, but also, where's the substance behind that? And I was talking to my wife about this. We went on a quick little road trip for our friend's birthday a few weeks ago. But I was saying, this is like the only era where you don't have to have talent and you can get famous. Think about that. You don't have to have any talent. You just have to film something. People have to like it, and then you become famous off of that for no reason. Like, think about the guy that was what was this? He was skateboarding, listening to the was it Pink Floyd or
Stevie Nicks?
Yeah, he's the guy was
Drinking
skateboarding.
the cranberry juice.
Yeah, like, that's all you did, and to skateboard, and then you put the good song that everybody loves on it, and you got famous for that, and then you got into commercials for that, but there's no substance behind it because we don't see him anymore. Just like one-hit wonders, right? It's got to have a lot of substance behind whatever it is that you're saying and the values that you have.
Yeah, and to your point, that ties into the social media world, this instant gratification world, where kids will go and have a trainer for a week, and they're like, why am I not the best player around here? And now that I've spent a week doing it, it's like there's this amount of time you need to spend to grow, and it's different for each individual, but you need to log the time. And it's not just this, you're never going to get to a point where it's like, okay, you're done working hard, now you're good to go. It's like, you either adopt the whole lifestyle or you don't. And so I think that all that stuff gets miscommunicated in the viral things you're mentioning. They're like, man, this guy just did this and became rich. It seems like I should be able to get this instant return on my money or return on my time. And it's like, unfortunately, with basketball and sports, that's not how it works. And that's the beauty in it to me. But to some kids, that's where they get conflicted. I have 3 trainers. I don't understand how I'm not playing. I don't understand how I'm not getting what I want. And so, It's
And how do
just
you how do you act that out in your own life? Knowing that is the case. Like, what is your secret to getting past some of those things that might not be at your fingertips right now, but you're working towards?
I mean, I don't have social media. I'm on Instagram a little bit. I don't have any other social media. I don't like surf
No,
social
but
media.
I'm not talking about social media. I'm just talking about like in your everyday life. If you got a challenge and it's just like, man, I don't. It's been so long before we get to this thing, because that's what we're trying to teach our players. But how do you get past those moments with the mentality that you have?
Yeah, I'm not big on results for anything. I'm huge on
Mm,
the process of what, I'm not, no matter what you're pursuing, the results is not the end all be all of whatever you get. And so even if you win a basketball game or lose a basketball game, that's not the story of kind of where you're at. So I think focusing on the process of whatever you're doing and just the day-to-day improvement of whatever you're pursuing. For me, it's coaching. I'm trying to become a better coach each day. I'm trying to become a better communicator each day, and I'm trying to, help my team grow each day. And I don't gauge those standards by the results of our games, right? I gauge that based on the looks in my players' eyes, the feedback I'm getting from them, these subtle things, because those are the things that I'm kind of looking for. I talk about all the time is to our players, we're not preparing to beat a team that we can beat. We're preparing to try to overcome and overachieve and beat a team that we should not be able to beat. And even if we do accomplish that, the next day at practice, guess what? We have to come back. We have to address what we didn't do great. We have to continue to find a way to get better, regardless of what the results were from yesterday. So I just think having that standard of you're never done, it's always a growth mindset, I think, is something I try to adopt in every day of whatever I'm doing. So
yeah.
I'm
Well,
never,
I'm ready. I'm ready,
I'm not
coach.
hitting these standards. Yeah, I'm not hitting these result standards and stopping. It's a growth progress. When great things happen, awesome. When bad things happen, let's move on. But we're gonna continue to move on. And that's just something I've just kind of adopted as a young player, young coach, through my kind of life experiences. I think that's just kind of ingrained in who I am.
I love that. I love that. I'm ready to go right now, coach.
Let's go.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you out of here on these last couple. What are what are your things that you have to do for yourself every single day? We have to do a lot of stuff for other people, our families, wife, kids, the students that we teach, the players that we coach. And there's just a lot of pull on us. Like, it can be a lot stressful. What are some of the outlets that you have that alleviate some of that stress? For me, it's working out hard. I need that hour every single day that I need to make sure that I make that a priority. What would that thing be for you?
That's funny. I was going to say, I make sure I hit a 30-minute workout every day. I'm not as good as you at an hour yet. I'm gonna get there, but I make sure to hit at least my 30-minute workout. I don't feel like complete without it. So I just think that's something I try to hit early in the morning.
Yep.
And then after that, like I said, I'm big on just not letting things linger. So if something happens throughout my day where a player says anything, they can't come to practice, whatever, or whatever whatever kind of weird obstacle the day throws at me, I try to hit that thing straight on and address those things head on, and it continues to kind of give me momentum throughout the day. I found when I was younger, if I would avoid those things due to inconvenience or whatever reason I had, it would kind of add things onto my plate later, and I would kind of just feel more pulled down. So I think hitting my workout and just kind of just living in the moment the best I can, uh, is the best thing for me. And then prioritizing my family time. My most of my time spent teaching PE and coaching basketball, so ensuring I know when and where my family time will be, and then being the best I can to be present and give them my best, or my main two emphases of the day. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Nope, I love that. Coaches, if you're listening to this, there's going to be fires every single day. Somebody's not going to be able to make weights. Somebody's not going to be able to make open gym. Somebody's not going to be able to make practice. There's this. And how you approach it, there's going to be a time where a kid misses a game for something that you don't even think is a valid reason for them to miss. And that's just some of the things that happen as a coach. And then one of the things that I try to do is I try to just put my phone away when I get home. And then also like when I work out, I watch film that way. It may not be like the same efficiency as if you're just in front of the computer watching it, but it's always constantly on. And so you pick up little things by just watching the games, and it could be any game. Like I watched your guys' games when you guys went up to the Jesuit tournament last year to see what you guys were doing. I think you guys played Jesuit, and I watched the Mitty boys play, like, because it was on NFHS and because I love basketball, and you guys are a good team. And I just wanted to see, what it might have been after we hung out, but that's just what I do. I just watch the game, and you just learn so much from the game and what happens in the game. Why are we not practicing the things that happen the most in the game?
Right.
It makes pretty much sense. Like, why would we spend so much time doing these other things that don't really even translate? That's another thing that I've come to learn, and I'll continue to learn, and hopefully get better, just like we all are trying to do. But last thing, if there's somebody that should be on the show, who should it be? And you have to make the connection.
Oh man,
you can't say Jason Pollock, because I've already
that's my
him.
Easy answer, man. He's my brother-in-law. I can get him easy.
I know.
Yeah, if you already invited him. I'm not sure who's been all on your podcast.
I need TK. I've hit him, one or two times, just in passing when he was at our tournament. So I'd love to have him on, and he lives right around the block, so he can come sit down next to me. But
I'll try to make some work on the Mitty boys and my brother-in-law. So that covers more than one name. I hope that helps.
Okay. There we go. I'll take it. So, well, stay on after. I'm going to play this outro because technology is great.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.